3. I'm not seeing cameras.
No, stop.
I'm not seeing cameras. Come here. But auto. Why is it not showing
That's
me?
because the
What am I
autos
doing?
for this is set. Welcome to the 13th of June and our Community and Natural Environment Committee. To open us, I will ask Andrew McKean from the Anglican community, please.
Mai iho e ho mai te rangi Māori e ka koto katoa. Ko te pauhunu wairua hau ki te whare wānanga o Waikato, e minita hau I roto I te tikanga Pākehā o te Hāhi Mihinari, ko Anaru toko ingoa, ko Trish tēnei, toko hoa mahi. The Lord give you peace. Thank you for the opportunity to offer a prayer before your meeting. I'm Brother Andrew, I'm the Ecumenical Chaplain at the University of Waikato and a member of our Waikato Interfaith Council, more commonly known as WIFCO. My friend and colleague here is Trish, a chaplain in training. If there were a Nobel Prize for being grounded, for being really real, then I would wish to nominate the American author Anne Lamott. She suggests that whatever your position on the spectrum of spirituality, whether you acknowledge one God or many, whether you think of a power of love, a life force, an underlying reality, whether you believe in a source of all being or not, there are three essential prayers or responses to life. She describes them as help, thanks, and wow. And in a moment, on behalf of WIFCO, I'm going to ask the God that I believe in to help you in your mahi. But before I do that, I invite you to just spend a few seconds calling to mind those things about our city that you would wish to give thanks for. And for me, these would include cycling along the riverbank, enjoying the gardens, the cafes, the development of Waiwhakareke, the hospitality of our mosques and our temples and our churches. Now, what would you say wow to? For our wedding anniversary, my wife and I enjoyed a balloon ride, and the views all around were stupendous. Just outside my office at university, listening to the tui in the Kowhai, or watching the kōtare fishing in Chapel Lake, they are also wow moments. But as a confirmed foodie, sampling the tapas at Gothenburg restaurant, or tasting one of the Belgian beers at the Matangi tap room can also elicit wonder at people's creativity. So I know you're all busy, but stay alert for wow moments. And don't forget to say thanks for even the ordinary things. As I leave you now with a prayer for that's the third word, help.
O Holy One, known by many names and beyond all names, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of community, Spirit of justice, we ask your blessings on this meeting of the Community of Natural Environment Committee and on its members who have been called to lead the development of this community in which we live and work and play, giving direction on strategic priorities and resourcing Kirikiriroa's infrastructure.
As they consider the current and future needs of our city and the well-being of its residents, help them as leaders to not ask first, how do we fix this, but what do we need to learn? How might we need to change? And to whom do we need to listen?
Remind them, because we all forget from time to time, especially in the noisiness of what passes for political debate today, that they are not only leaders but also servants, and that it is their responsibility and ours to serve the common good of all.
Remind them that no matter where we live, everyone, gay, straight, transgender, Maori, Pākehā, Pacifica, Asian, African, Latino, Muslim, Jew, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh or atheist, each is our neighbour, our sister and brother. And that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the most vulnerable of those among us. Our rangatahi, our kaumatua, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind or spirit. The tauiwi and manene in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, those who are forgotten.
Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May they and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice and by the spirit of love.
This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, and all that we hold good and right and true. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for the invitation to stay, but unfortunately I have a service to prepare and a sermon to write and a few other things to do, but God bless you all in your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and for doing that for us. All right, we'll move on to apologies. I know there's quite a few bits and pieces moving around today. I've got full absence for Councillor Maxine, Councillor Ryan, lateness for Deputy Mayor Angela and Mayor Paula, and early departure possibly for Councillor Andrew and Mayor Paula. We've also got, we're going to try and aim for lunch as well at between 12 and 1, which is the Move Your Butt bowel cancer fundraiser that Paula and Angela and I are involved with. So that's the aim. But are there any other apologies? Sarah.
Hi, Kesh. I am just going to be in between Zoom and the chamber today, but I do have to just be absent around 3 to 3:30 for a personal appointment. But
Yep. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, hopefully we'll be done.
yeah, I did hope so too. But
Thanks, Sarah. So I'll move that those apologies be accepted. Can I have a seconder? Anna, thank you. All those in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. Thanks, Mark. Seconded by Emma. All those in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any?
Initiative that is reported on. Yeah.
All right. Do we just note that?
Can I confirm, so although you have the interest, are you conflicted? So will you take part in the vote on the matter?
We're just confirming a report, aren't we? So I think
So not conflicted. Wonderful, thank you.
Awesome. And we have no public forum?
No public forum.
That's different to the last meeting. Yeah, okay. So we'll move on to item 5, confirmation of the open minutes from the 18th of April. I'll move. Can I have a seconder? Thanks, Ewan. All those in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. And on to Chair's report. I have nothing to add. Hope you enjoyed the pretty pictures and hope you get to visit the Porcupet. Is it called a Porcupet? The baby porcupine? Yes. And the monitors soon. That will be fun. Any questions or comments? Nope. I will move to accept the Chair's report, seconded by Councillor Ewan. All those in favour? Anyone against? Nope.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. And item 7. Sure. Welcome, Rebecca.
Asmare koutou elected members, ko Rebecca Waite tōku ingoa. I'm the director or unit director for community services. I'm here this morning on behalf of Liz Cann, our aquatics director, who can't be with us in person today, to present the progress report on our aquatic strategy year 1 and year 2. The report also includes part reporting on the river safety projects, which were led by the aquatic staff over summer. The aquatic strategy has 4 outcomes, which guide the work of staff and help us to achieve our vision for aquatic facilities, that they are vibrant, exciting places where residents and visitors want to visit, promote opportunities for recreation, fun, fitness and social connection. Some of the highlights that are included within the report that I'd like to highlight are that post-COVID, visitation across Waterworld, GAC and our partner pools has improved by 32% and is currently sitting at just under 400,000 visits per year. Our aquatic facilities support aquatics codes and high-performance swimming and events that have been promoted post-COVID have increased by 57%. We've hosted 10 events, 7 regional or national level. And a special highlight for us was the Special Olympics this year. Informal rec and play is embraced and promoted through our facilities, and we've captured that 85% visiting our facilities reported that they had fun. And we're working in partnership with our community and social development team and others in the community ensure that barriers to community access are reduced. This focus is currently in the Glenview Melville community and promoting GAC as a local destination for our whānau. And the final highlight in terms of our operational performance is that we brought on 80 new staff this year in a tight labour market. And we're able to continue to remain open across our 2 sites for our full and busy summer. And this was in an environment where a number of our other facilities around the country and within the industry were forced to close or significantly reduce services due to the labour market impacts. In relation to the river safety elements of the report, at the June 22nd Community Committee, 8 actions were approved to mitigate some of the risks associated with river use. And a cross-organisational approach was undertaken which involved City Safety Parks, our comms team and the Hamilton Pools team. Our aquatic staff have delivered on their actions that were part of their action plan, delivering river safety education to 2 intermediate schools, to new migrants, upskilling council staff who work close or near the river, and improving access to aquatic facilities by providing free lessons for schools. And an additional action that we undertook was the Life Jacket Hub in partnership with Swimming Waikato and Drowning Prevention Aotearoa. The wider results of the river safety projects will be reported to the August committee meeting. So you'll get greater level of detail on some of the other actions then. But I'm happy to take any questions that you might have on the aquatics report.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Sarah.
Chair Kesha, I've just got a question for Rebecca around feedback received regarding the pools being like at capacity at some points over summer. I was just interested in the issue around capacity, particularly at peak times.
Yeah, sure. There are 2 probably key components that are to capacity issues at our pools. The first is obviously the capacity of the pool halls themselves and safe levels there. But the second, and probably more pertinent to this conversation, is staffing ratios. So we can reach capacity in areas of the pool where our staffing ratios get above those deemed to be safe. So therefore, that means that we can no longer have an increased number of people in a pool hall, or we need to limit access to that area to keep those staffing ratios within safe levels.
Okay, and is the key issue there ultimately having enough lifeguards on at that time, or was there an element of space, and having too many people in one space?
Yeah,
I guess.
it's both, Sarah. I think that both come into play at different times over the summer, but certainly we have had high visitation, and our lifeguard numbers this year have been stretched to the top of those ratio levels.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Casey Cox.
Kia ora. Just a question around, I know you've mentioned it in the environmental part, around the wanting to improve the public transport links to the aquatic facilities. I just wondered if you have any reflections on that. We've been talking about this for a little bit of time now. So if
Yeah.
any updates or information.
No updates, but we are actively working with the organisation's transport planners and other stakeholders within the city to highlight the issue and to work on plans which will hopefully be presented to this council through the long-term plan to improve access. So we're very aware that that's an issue for some of our residents who live in areas that don't have convenient transport to aquatic destinations.
Cool, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. I'm on page 29, looking at the action plan and looking at the outcome area goal. We will, on focus, we will ensure that our facilities can be accessible by everyone, and I note that that's obviously in the strategy, and it said delayed to year 3. So do we have a start date for when that audit is going to be?
It will be this upcoming financial year.
So new from 1 July, okay. And do we have a bit of a starting point in terms of customer feedback to date, particularly for people with disabilities and our older residents?
Yes, we do. So we do have themes from our feedback, which we're considering those through the renewals program and capital development program for the upcoming LTP at pools, and also in line with the audits that we'll be undertaking.
Okay, can you give me any sort of high level, just 1 or 2 things that are bubbling up at the top for issues?
Yeah, there's a high demand on rehab or warm water facilities, so the hydro pool and that area, and also improvements to our changing facilities and things like that are really bubbling to the surface.
Yeah, okay, cool, awesome, thank you.
Just following on from that, Rebecca, in terms of accessibility, are we also looking at transport to facilities? So when is that part of the year 3 audit, or?
It does form part of the audit, but there is also another significant piece of work done separately around the transport network, and there'll be information as part of that as well. So our facility audit touches on all elements of the facilities, but there's also another piece.
And so how does that, so, most of us probably realize that some of our most vulnerable communities have issues with accessing Waterworld. A bus from Inderley to Waterworld that we often talk about can take an hour. So, and 2 buses. So how are we linking with, infrastructure or regional transport or Waikato
So
regional councils?
representative from our team have been participating in some workshopping that they are doing as part of their planning processes to ensure that kind of the voice of our services are heard in those conversations, and then we'll be working with them to identify what potential solutions there are and bringing proposals forward around that.
Perfect. I just had a question on your, the report talked about a switching of customer relationship management systems to make it easier to collect data and things. Is that budgeted for?
Yes, it's budgeted for and will be completed this upcoming financial year.
Awesome.
And that's a change that's occurring across the group. I think you may have heard about it in relation to the Hamilton Gardens as well.
Ah, all right. Awesome. And then there was a point around partner pools.
Yes.
And that we've worked with partner pools to assess their upkeep. Is that the word? Because they're all aging facilities. Do we know how much life they have in them?
Yeah, we do, and those levels vary, I think, depending on the pool and its situation. Most of them, they all sit within schools or university facilities. I think the biggest issue that we're facing with our partner pools, alongside asset condition, is also probably the cost associated with operating the pools, so heating, chemicals, trained staff or people to watch over them. So we're actively working with them. We're actually just about to do our evaluation process for the summer season to take our new insights, and we'll roll them into the upcoming season and through our future planning.
Okay. So for future planning and planning ahead, are we confident that we've got that provision for the next few years, or?
I think
How-
we could say with certainty that we have it for the next few years, and we're working hard on our relationships. But part of that planning does look at that into the long term.
Yeah.
There is a piece of work being undertaken in partnership with Sport Waikato and Council around network provision for aquatics into the future, and it has investigated that, and the findings of that report will be delivered in the next month or two.
Perfect. And last question, sorry. There was a mention of a comms plan. Where are we? And that there wasn't enough funding for a comms plan.
Yeah.
I read that somewhere.
Yep.
So is that happening leading into summer?
There'll be a more fulsome agenda item on that in August, but yes, we are working on that with our partners currently. And so the funding that we received from Water Safety New Zealand was not quite at the right level to do the size of campaign that we were hoping to undertake. And the timing of the funding didn't work for the previous summer season, so we're working hard with our partners to have something to go live for the upcoming summer. So and it's multi-pronged. So Helen's working on this as part of a regional forum, as well as our staff approach internally.
I was just going to say, and Water Safety New Zealand have indicated that that they are interested in funding that campaign.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Water Safety New Zealand have indicated that they're interested in, funding that campaign. Obviously, it's a contestable process, but they're wanting to support it in the Waikato. Also, Waikato River Authority, we haven't talked funding yet, but they're wanting to be a part of that as well. So we're just building those partnerships currently.
Okay, no other questions. I'm happy to move if there's a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Moko. I think that came from that. All right, we'll move to debate. I won't say much to start with. Let's go to Councillor Pike.
I just wanted to thank the staff in preparing this report, but also acknowledge the event that happened at Waterworld at the end of last month, and just want to thank the staff for their quick reaction and to the incident, and also, I think that's a tribute to the quality of training that our lifeguards receive. So just wanted to thank the staff for that.
Thank you. Councillor Donovan.
I'd like to echo Councillor Pike's comments as well, and thank the staff for their work and this report, but also add that for the first time in a long time, it was quite nice to receive some feedback from the public about one of our facilities in the cleanliness of Gallagher Aquatic Centre in Melville. And this came from a person who swims a lot, and they've been using a corporate pool, which will remain nameless, but is near town. And her comments to me were absolutely stunning. So clean water, really well kept facility. So just wanted to pass that on to the team and say well done. And that, contrary to what you might have heard in the recent weeks or days, there are some nice people out there who do say nice things.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I also want to echo thanks to staff, and also just say providing swimming facilities is a really important role that council has, and I hope that we can have some really good discussion with the long-term plan over how we address issues such as access to pools to make it even more accessible, because in reality it is quite hard to get all the way across the city, and thinking about going to a swimming lesson or going swimming at any time between like 3 and 5:30 or 6 p.m. Is people are just going to have a headache just thinking about it. So I think we do need to make sure we're looking at how we're accessible, but also investing to existing facilities, the changing rooms, look exactly the same as they did almost when I was, this tall. So I think there is, work we need to do to invest into that, to provide a positive experience for people. And ensure that we have enough space, because we are a fast-growing city and we haven't really made any really significant investments into aquatic space for a long time. So there's a lot of competing priorities, but it's at least something to give some serious consideration to. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Tuariki.
To echo pretty much everything that Sarah has said, and further to that, I am really keen to for us to advance the discussions with the Waikato River Authority and look at how we are going to provide better access for some of our more vulnerable communities. So I'm really keen for us to do that. I think that by partnering with Iwi Hapu and Mātā Waka is a great initiative that we need to mobilise now, and so I'd like to see some further progress with regards to water safety in particular. I think as cost becomes a barrier for many of our vulnerable communities, many of our kids are opting to swim in the river, and so I'm not saying that the river is not a cool place to swim, but the river does have its challenges as well, and so I think the safety aspect of wherever they're going to swim is something that we can certainly continue to support, and I think we need to partner with iwi in this one, and I think we'll get a greater outcome.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Chair, Councillor Thompson stole a little bit of my thunder, but we usually think alike, so I'm not surprised. I guess my message now over the next few months, particularly for the newly elected members, is to start paying attention to some of these things and some of the answers that we get from the organisation. And Councillor Thompson's right in terms of changing room facilities in hydro, which was the answer to the question that I had. That's going to need some investment, and of course, those of us that have been around for a while know we can't do everything and we can't fund everything in an LTP. So that's going to be where the rubber hits the roads. What are our priorities? So I just encourage newbies to start writing notes and thinking about that, because it's a really long process and it's a really valuable one as well. And of course, we can't be everything to everyone. So, yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Casey Cox.
I just want to acknowledge the staff too for their work on looking into the fees and charges as part of the annual plan, but obviously related to the Waterworld access and in particular looking at the concessions and how it can be made more accessible for families. So just really appreciate that work. And also, I guess, not to introduce a new topic, but I do feel I need to advocate for our lake in terms of the potential for it to once again be a swimming area. I know it's not part of this conversation, but there's certainly a lot of evidence that suggests it is a redeemable swimming spot. So I will hold to that based on the evidence that I've seen, and I look forward to that conversation during the next year or so. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to echo pretty much what most of you have said and thank the team, the staff at our aquatics facilities for the amazing work that they do. Liz has been an amazing addition to the team, and the results show it. The new programs, new initiatives, I did read about the award for the Keep On Swimming initiative. That's pretty cool stuff that we're doing in Hamilton. That's a landlocked city. So definitely want to recognize that. And, we talk about enjoyment of our aquatic facilities. Every summer, I like to visit our facilities, as most of you do, with the kids. And I recall this summer going into Waterworld. No one knows who you are, so you just sort of, turn up in your togs and what have you not. And there was a really proud moment that I had, being out at Waterworld on the grassed area. The kids were in the playground and, the ice creams, and we were there all day. And it was just a a proud moment where you go, oh, you know, I had something to do with this. Or, and then you never actually switch off when you're part of the community portfolio too. So you're walking around going, oh, what about that? And what about that? So I just want to recognize, the efforts of the team and working hard to ensure that all Hamiltonians are enjoying our facilities. So thank you. Did I move that yet? No.
Moved and seconded, so you can ready to vote.
Cool. We will go to the vote on that one, please. Just a show of hands? Yep. All those in favor? Show of hands.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item 8. Community and social development update. Welcome, Philippa.
Kia ora, elected members. Ko Philippa Toku Ingoa, I'm the Community and Social Development Manager. Alongside a number of our team who join me in the chambers today, I want to introduce our annual update of the He Rautaki Whakawhanaki Hapori strategy. A number of items within our report today will be of no surprise to many of our elected members, as we regularly see your involvement and interest in the work our team does within the community across all different sectors. On many occasions over the past year, our team has been required to quickly pivot and adjust priorities to respond to the needs of our community. This has seen us play a role in many projects, and as a team, we're regularly called upon for our expertise, both internally and externally to Council. I'd like to highlight a few key areas mentioned in our report. Firstly, the capacity of community houses has continued to increase over the past year. Council staff have strong connections with each of our community houses, often sitting in on board meetings, supporting with strategic planning, and facilitating partnerships with agencies that will ensure the success of the group's goals. The strengthening of existing programs and projects, as well as the introduction of new projects within our community houses, sees more on offer across the city and better support and connections for our residents. Working within the emergency housing area of Ulster Street has been a new space for our team this year. This has seen us building partnerships and connections that have supported a number of activities, mainly focusing on the well-being of tamariki in the community based there. We continue to support community groups as they build on the work started in this space, and we're looking forward to seeing what else can be achieved both within Ulster Street and as whānau and individuals transition to more permanent and suitable housing. This report doesn't include updates on the Disability Policy and Action Plan, the Welcoming Communities Plan, or the Age Friendly Plan, as they'll be presented in separate reports later this year. Thank you, Chair Kesh, for the opportunity to update elected members through this report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Moko.
Kia ora, Philippa. Hey, just recently you would know that we had that housing hui with a number of stakeholders last week. What are we going to do about some of the outcomes and discussions that came from that hui?
I wasn't part of that hui.
Okay. Fair enough, no?
Yep.
Helen?
So, I mean, I think the intent from that hui was that we meet again I mean, that was a fairly generic type discussion, I think, with a commitment from those that were present to come back together and start to look at solutions. I also recently attended a forum hosted by HUT, Housing and Urban Development Ministry and so which was a whole range of community and government agencies coming together. So there is a real acknowledgement of the issue, and there is a real intent to move out and away from emergency housing into permanent housing. It will take a number of houses yet to be built. So Kāinga Ora has, and we know they've started building, but they're really intending to get some momentum over the next 2 years. But until that happens, that permanent housing isn't yet available in the numbers that are required within the city. The other thing is, I think we heard in that meeting that you also attended, is that the Ministry of Social Development is only taking people from within Hamilton into emergency housing, so that should also relieve some of the pressure. Yeah.
Good point. No.
Kia ora. Just a question around, I guess in terms of what we're facing at the moment with the cost of living, and obviously at times like this, growing food is one of the responses that's made. But I just wondered what might be able to be achieved in making that work, not only council's work, but the work of community food growing and learning more visible, I guess, through council, so that people can more readily engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, kia ora, and a great question. We're working really hard to sort of be connected and involved with a number of different pieces that are happening across the community. And as you know, Yona from our team is really involved in that growing space. I understand there's a project that's being discussed around growing and, you know, how do we actually produce for ourselves here. And I understand that the learnings from that will be able to be taken out wider as well. So I think there's not one answer that's going to fix this, obviously, but how do we as a council support and activate that? Our parks team is really engaged and supportive of various marakai being, you know, stood up in different areas, and we continue to have those discussions with community groups to support and enable them to start their own developments in this space.
Yeah, it's just, I guess I get a lot of requests from the community about food growing and where they can do it and how, and it feels difficult to direct them to one place where that information is kept or, you know, accessible. So that was more my question, not so much what we're doing, I know we do lots, but how it can be perhaps more comms around it so that the community can see it more easily.
Yeah, that's an excellent point and something we can take from here to build on further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kesh. The number 33 is a great initiative where the council is supporting partners between the centre and a local church about trailer loads of firewood. Can the council just remind the partners about the need to have chimneys swept clean, because I imagine some of these will be older houses and older wood burners, and there is a potential risk there because, you know, in these tight times people might be cutting back on things like that, so just a little danger that we can help them avoid.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I do know with one of the drop-offs of one trailer load of firewood, the guy that dropped it off actually jumped on the roof and cleaned the chimney for the woman at the same time. So that is being acknowledged. A giant big bird's nest was within that, but just allowing that to happen. But that's a great point, and maybe some comms we can support the community houses with to share that out wider, because it's more efficient and effective heating as well, and cleaner for the families. So thank you.
Great.
Councillor Donovan.
I'm not sure if it's particularly relevant, but I did write this in my notes, so if I'm off point, just tell me. Do we engage with schools in terms of some of the messaging that we tried to get out to community? Let me frame it this way. Do you think talking to school students is a good way to get a message back to parents? Because often what I've always been led to believe is that kids can often be your biggest advocate for change or doing positive things. So I was just wondering what we do in that space.
Yeah, good question. We have definitely seen that. Yeah, well done.
How many years have you been? 2 years.
We have definitely seen that within our civic education space over the past few years. Sometimes it's been in the form of, you know, parents wanting to check that that consent is being sought when their young people, when their children are actually giving their feedback. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's a really good sign that parents are hearing about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, cool. Yeah.
And using that as an opportunity, not just to bring that message back home, but to build up the next voters, basically, to understand what does council actually provide and
Yeah.
the importance of their voice.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Ulster Street Response Network was referred to in the report. What is that?
So, I mean, what we've developed within Ulster Street is a group of different, at this stage mainly churches, but we've also got MSD involved within that. We've got, through the school, there's the police are engaged, MSD, Kāinga Order are connecting up. And so, you know, through various discussions with a lot of, you as elected members, we've brought these groups together just to continue discussion around how do we start to address this. Again, it's that one thing's not going to fix it all, but if we keep those conversations going. So Ratu within our team has built those connections with Whiti Ora School and is working to maintain a regular catch-up there, as well as bringing in the churches and connecting them with some of those agencies that can provide additional support, because they're still sort of learning what they can do and the difference that they can make within this space. So we're trying it from different angles there and supporting them all to come together.
So is that something that your team is facilitating, or did someone else start it?
So there is a group that meets already, but Ratu is working on starting a new group at a different level of discussions.
Yeah.
You know, the pools have been involved in bringing in, that connection and connecting those whānau with their services as well. So yes, we've been pretty paramount within, setting that up.
Awesome. And Te Whareotiata library services, what does that look like?
So that's been over sort of the past year or to 18 months. It's more about bringing in some of the technology from the library and bringing in some of the library staff to run programs or to interact with young people and introducing them to the other services that the libraries have, not just books. So that's been what it's looked like to date, but that discussion will continue as we look at what does access to our facilities look like for parts of our community that don't necessarily utilise them as much as others.
So we take equipment to the community
We
house?
have done, we've taken like the VR kits and, things that the kids really enjoy interacting with. Yeah.
Just because there aren't no questions, one more then. Discussing libraries, and we've always had discussions around mobile libraries, mobile play. Are we doing any work in that area is there a need? Is it something we're still talking about?
We're definitely still talking about it. It does sit within our strategy to encourage access to those facilities. Within the development of Puketi Neighbourhood House, we include what does it look like to bring library services out there. We're looking at a click and collect service, that's been running through the library for several years now. What does it look like for whānau or individuals to be able to pick up library books or a bag of books from one of their local community houses? So those discussions they are still happening, and we're really eager to develop that more within our community houses.
Awesome, thank you. No further questions. Happy to move if there's a seconder. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Philippa. And we'll move into debate with Councillor Pike.
And thank staff for their work in this report as well. I'm particularly interested in the inclusive community engagement, especially around giving our growing diverse migrant communities and ensuring that we're not just targeting the same people all the time. And I would like to thank Jovi for her work in this space. I'd made some comments before the annual plan about the need to put some comm spend towards targeting different communities, and was pleased to see that the Indian Weekender and Waikato Chinese Weekly had been included in the final report, and I guess just signalling overall that this is an area I want to see focused and translated messaging as well. And I guess outside that, just interested in the Ulster Street work and understanding how the play trailer trial is developing and what the successes or issues might come after that. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moko?
Yes, I really want to just emphasise the importance of us taking the feedback that we get from some of the champions in our community that are advancing the discussions and their organisational strategies and work towards housing. I couldn't help but notice that there were a couple of key players that were not at the latest housing hui that we had hosted here last week, and that was the iwi and Mātāwaka. And so if we really want to be strategic about how we leverage off each other's capabilities, we really need to make sure that iwi and Mātāwaka are part of that conversation. They are already advancing lots of their core work and investment in that space, and I believe that we missed an opportunity where iwi and Mātāwaka were not part of that hui last week, and I believe they would have been able to add a lot of value. Secondly, I think that we need to be proactive about what we do with some of this information, particularly as we move into the long-term planning. And I do know that a number of us elected members do have housing as one of our strategies. And if we're not going to move some of our whānau from out of the emergent housing, it's going to be very difficult to continue to promote events here in Kirikiriroa because there's nowhere for them to stay. And so it's a real defeatist approach. So I really want to get our hands into putting together a work program so that some of our community champions can see what we've committed to. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Anna.
I tautoko what Councillor Moko has just said, but my focus for this debate is really to acknowledge the team who work under the strategy of community and social development. And I particularly want to acknowledge the work in terms of its capacity to build relationships, important relationships that Moko's really talked about, and Emma. The relationships that are fundamental that I see to the building of public trust. And we have seen recently that trust can be very quickly eroded, and that we have a real responsibility to keep that as strong as possible. And so I do, think that this strategy has outcomes beyond what is even written in this report and what's even indicated in the strategy itself. I think the work is incredibly important to our democracy and our governance because it builds those trusting relationships. So, and the team does an incredible job at doing that. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that. And I think it's something that we need to continue to talk about going forward into the LTP as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for saying that, Councillor Anna. It's exactly where my thoughts were as well. Our ComDev team it's almost like the heart of the organization. You know, they've got those relationships deep in the community, and they foster these amazing relationships and connections and carry those messages between the organization and the community. And, you know, I can't stress just how important their role is in terms of engagement or improving civic education, whether it's KAI initiatives, employment, the ethnic community, our youth, our seniors, it's just everything. They're everywhere. And you know, they've got their ear on the ground. They know what's happening out there, because it's quite easy for us to get stuck in our bubbles of bureaucracy, if you like. So thank you, Philippa and team, for what you do for the organization, but also for our city. A huge amount of work, diverse areas, even you know, into economic development areas. So the employment workshops that were held within community houses. I popped into one of them with Philippa when it was in Glenview. It was amazing. And there were all of these employers there and people from the community coming in looking for work. And there were people there at that time being hired while I was watching all of this unfold. So it's just those connections of just connecting the right people at the right time. The Ulster Street response question that I asked, they play a pivotal role in that. So it's council not doing everything, but facilitating those conversations and building those relationships. So again, thank you for what you do. We will go to the vote on that one. All those in favour with a show of hands, please.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. We will move on to item 9, Class 4 gambling and TAB venue policy, please. Hello, Carmen.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carmen Fuchs. I'm the Policy and Bylaw Advisor. With me, I've got Greg Morton, who has just come on board as the Policy and Bylaw Lead. So if you haven't spoken to him already, he is around. And he'll be working with me for the next little bit, or for the foreseeable future, I guess. So the purpose of the report today is to seek approval to begin the special consultative process. Currently, we're operating under a sinking lid policy for both the TAB venues and the Class 4 venues policies. Once this has been approved, we do have some consultations scheduled from 11th of July to the 11th of August, and a 20th of September hearing scheduled as well. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank the various areas of council that have helped me with the review of this policy, of these policies, and just the support that I've received from both inside the council and external organisations. With that, I will take any questions.
Thanks, Carmen. Very good report, by the way.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Just actually, I've been around a few times doing this. So I just have one addition. I wonder if you would be happy on page 61, under why are we doing this in the consultation document. We know that it doesn't, Class 4 doesn't include casinos, but I wonder if we can just put that in there.
Absolutely.
Because we haven't, the general public don't know. That'd be great. That's all. And I'm happy to move this report, Chair, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark to second? Yeah. Carmen, I had one question just on the social impact assessment.
Yes.
It says that DIA had some data around the impact in Hamilton. Do they have data for online gambling?
Not that I'm aware of. I do know there is a, give me a moment, I'm just going to find it. Do you know if they have that data?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah.
I can definitely take a look into it and get back to you.
Yeah,
if that's
just
okay.
out of interest, because it's obviously a massive impact with Class 4. Just interested to know how it compares to online. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, I can come back to you with that. Just noting that in this policy, the online gambling is not covered, but I can definitely come back to you with those statistics.
Yeah, cool, thank you. Councillor Anna.
Thank you, and thank you for a great report as well, which I've sent a few questions to you about the, following on from your report, but I thought it might be useful to share some of that information with others as well. So I'll just ask it again around the numbers of machines and how that actually works, because I understand the sinking lid for venues, but not necessarily for how that interplays with machines. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So part of the decrease in the machines is because we're not allowing any more venues. So hopefully that won't be increasing as well. when organisations merge, so if there's two organisations that merge together, they actually have a reduction in their machines as well. So the maximum that they can have is 18 if they're separate, and that's only if they were both established before 2001. So if they were both established before 2001, they both have 18, and then together if they merge, they can have a total of 24, so that's a 12 reduction. So just, I know that's a bit of a complicated answer, but if they do merge, they do lose 12 machines. As well as post-2001, there was a reduction in the amount of machines that a venue can hold. So it went from 18 machines to 9, so there is a reduction in that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
I guess just trying to understand if there's a correlation between physical venues shutting down and an increase in online gambling. I recognise that that's not part of your considerations at the moment, but maybe if that could be added to those considerations. What was it Councillor Keesh had mentioned? Yeah, and I guess also just understanding what controls would be, or what the difference in controls would be in online versus a physical venue. So whether a physical venue has more controls to assist those with addictions as opposed to online. Just if you get where I'm coming from.
I think I do. So I do have to say that information is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
So there is obviously that hidden aspect with the online.
Yeah.
However, with the Class 4 venues, we're kind of, it's really difficult because we're then expecting them to kind of monitor. But they're in the business of, to an extent, making money. So it's kind of, it's a bit of a difficult question. Really, I can take a look in the, I guess, transfer rate from the Class 4 venues to online, but it's all about reducing what we can, right? So if there is a venue open at the moment that might close down, that might be a little bit less temptation for someone that does have a gambling problem. But it's all very difficult to say, to be perfectly honest. I can definitely see what I can find, but it is a very difficult question.
Or even if there is, if you think there is no controls in a physical venue, just to understand that context, I guess would be helpful from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can take a look into that. It is, there is a little bit of controls, but not. I can take a look at it and come back to you if that's okay.
They are required to have harm mitigation strategies in place, and so there'll be a list of what those are.
Yes.
And there are, they can breach some of there are some accountabilities around that are regulated through the DIA. It is a difference between regulated and online gambling is obviously unregulated, so very, as Carmen was saying, very difficult to get any information about that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
To be helpful.
Go for it.
In terms of, because this is the start of the process, I just want to make sure that we stay in line with that and the step and not start getting lots of information ahead of public hearings. So I'm going to ask Amy just to, particularly for new elected members would be
those
great.
that have not been a part of the process. So because we are at the first point in the process, so approval to go out and consult, which is why you have in there the statement of proposal. When they come back, the information that you're seeking at this one, it's really leaning into what will be needed in the deliberations report. So after we've had the hearings, and we will then bring back an awful lot of information and findings, and all of this that you're raising really leans into that deliberations before you do the adoption.
So that's the time for those
absolutely right.
Digging into it all. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Okay. I think probably answered my question. I wanted to just confirm that, say we put this out, but in terms of location restrictions and things, it would be after hearings that we would ask for options to strengthen that potentially. Yeah.
Yep, that's my answer.
Cool.
Yes, that's correct.
We've already got Deputy Mayor moving. Would you like to say anything?
Just quickly. I guess what I would say is we have achieved some really good outcomes from the current policy, and it has served us well. For, again, newly elected members, we will expect a very strong community response, very strong from both sides. It is a passionate topic. We will hear from the gaming trusts about the good work that they enable sports clubs and etc. and community groups, and we will hear in support of that the clubs that rely on that funding. And then on the other side of the coin, we will hear from the health and social services agencies and authorities about the harm of gambling. So it's a great test for a really robust and difficult space for elected members to work in. It'll be a good experience. Yeah, I've already probably said it's a bit of a challenging issue, and this is just the first step in that process. So the only other thing I guess I would say is really you do need to exhibit a very open mind and not have an opinion on it as we go through, because this is a formal consultative process, and it's really important with these real hot topics. So just passing my wisdom, my knowledge, yeah.
We appreciate it. Councillor Sarah.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you to Carmen and Greg for their work on this. With a very open mind. I suppose just foreshadowing that this came to us very quickly, so there is a couple of things I'd be interested to explore in terms of, say, potentially having a closer look at the sensitive areas and limitations around that. Right now, it's only restricts being adjacent to a school or some sense of location, which means you presumably could then be one building away, the next or the one street down. So I think there's some things I'll be interested to hear from the community about and discuss when it comes back to us for deliberations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The questions I asked Carmen around online gambling, I'd be interested to actually know, like Councillor Emma mentioned, is, are we seeing an increase in online gambling, and at what rate, and does that correlate to physical venues closing or not? Just to have that broader understanding of, yes, we're doing what we can to control what we can, but can we be doing more, or working with central government more, or leveraging which areas to ensure that we are looking at harm minimization on a whole. Deputy Mayor raised an important point too in terms of funding community groups and sporting groups and people who rely on that funding. I remember this conversation last term as well, because there are limited granting pools that fund these organizations. So if we are, limiting funding from one source, where does the money come from? So it will be an interesting time to go through that process and have those debates and conversations. Councillor Donovan.
Thanks, Chair Kesh. Thank you, Carmen and Greg, for bringing the report, and Helen as well for allowing the work to be done on it. It's a very, very good report, and it is like, just to sort of paraphrase what Deputy Mayor Angela was saying, it is going to be a little bit niggly. There's some really, really good reading in the depth of that report, which I got really stuck into and saw some good juicy stuff. But this is why we do our job, and kind of love what we do. So I know I'm not really making a point, but there's there is some really good reading deeper inside the report, which I would encourage everyone to have a look at, especially around that online piece, because a part of that, which I know will be argued for by the certain factions of the gambling community, is that the international operators are the ones that are, coming in and kind of harvesting profits out of New Zealand, as opposed to a local New Zealand regulated industry, which we can, see some compensation come back from to our community to help mitigate some of those problems that go on afterwards. That's all.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Cash. Look, I'm happy to support the motion. And option one, I'm supporting, I guess, because it's our existing position, and so it makes some sense to go in with that. Not necessarily what I'm going to agree with. Ultimately, we'll see. I'll go in with an open mind and listen to the submissions and listen to the evidence. But just happy to support this, but only as a starting point. Thanks.
Thank you. No other debate. Deputy Mayor, anything to add? And we'll go to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour?
Motion is carried unanimously.
Was Sarah's hand up?
Yes, I did see it just behind.
All right, thank you. We will break for morning tea and be back at 5:02, if that's all right with everyone. Thank you. Well, we're breaking to dance with you at 12. So I think we'll get going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. And let's welcome Calvin for Civil Defence update.
Morena, kia ora koutou. Ko Calvin Paotaku Ingoa. Ko auta kai whakahaere e te Uipu Haumaru Tauni e te Kaunihira Kirikiri-ro. E te kai whakahaere e te rākau whakamarumaru e te Kaunihira o Kirikiri-ro. Morning. I'm here in my capacity as the Civil Defence Controller to update with the quarterly Civil Defence report. There are probably three key things in there to highlight. The update on our service level agreement review with the Waikato Regional Council, the Auckland Flood Review Report, and then the implications of that for us at a local Hamilton level, and the upcoming exercise Rua, our upcoming annual exercise. Those were the key points in there that I wanted to just touch on. Since the report was prepared, there's been a development in the progression of the Civil Defence Bill. The bill has now been presented in Parliament. It is now will be called, instead of Civil Defence Emergency Management, will change to the Emergency Management legislation, and deals with some key topics around roles and responsibilities, recognising and enhancing the role of Māori in emergency management, some resilience and accountability around our critical infrastructure, and it's the name change. Those are the principal things that come out of that. We did submit as part of the preparation of the bill, and now that the bill has come about, we will have a further opportunity to make submissions, and that will be happening over the next period of time. I was asked also, it was pre-shadowed to me, that a discussion potentially on leaf removal schedules and water logging on our streets, and so my colleague Gordon Naidu, the Transportation Manager, is here should there be any questions on that, and we'll be able to answer those questions. With that, I'm happy just to take the report as read and to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Calvin? I will ask the first one, since you've mentioned Gordon in the room. So read your update and review of the Auckland flood incident. We're seeing lots of heavy downpours in Hamilton. So how are we equipped to, a lot of that to do with the leaves and the water logging on the streets?
Sure. I think I'll let Gordon deal with the first part there about the update committee on what our current process and structure is around that, and then I'm happy to take any further questions after that.
Morena, everyone, Madam Chair, Deputy Mayor Angela. Ko Gordon Naidu Tuku Ingoa. I'm the Transport Unit Director and happy to support Calvin. So thankfully he's given me pre-warning, so I've come with some information. So to answer your question, Madam Chair, so the Transport Unit is proactively using comms as the first point. So typically what happens is during the autumn season, we'll have a lot of comms going around leaf falls and what people need to do. Also, we proactively get messaging out there before a heavy rainfall. So typically we get warnings from Civil Defence telling us that this is coming. So there's messages going out to our community how to deal with that. We've also identified the hotspots within the city. So what happens is that these hotspots will have, wherever there's heavy leafall or flooding, we've also increased the level of service for those hotspots. So they get 2 sweeps a week wherever there's heavy leaf falls during April and May. And the guys are typically will go out and inspect those hotspots for if we get a heavy rain warning coming. So the guys go out, inspect it, make sure they're all clean, to adjust the heavy rains. So the guys will, as I said, proactively look at the catch pits and cesspits during heavy rain warnings. We also make sure that the contractors are prepared to address heavy rain. So, and we've got a communication system in place, and in terms of stakeholders and civil defence. And then also, finally, the guys will continue monitoring the cesspits during the heavy rains. So lastly, we plan to look at capacity improvements during the LTP. So wherever we can actually go and upgrade those pipes, we'll do that. And so we'll be asking for funding through the LTP.
Sounds good. I will let some other questions come to Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair Kesh. The deployment of Hamilton Council staff to help with other events in Auckland and Cyclone Gabriel, the cost of that, is that purely a Hamilton City Council cost, or do we get funding from Auckland for sending staff up there? How does that work?
Salary costs is a mutual aid thing where they retain where they lie. So we continue to pay the salary of staff who are deployed. All the other costs are picked up eventually by NEMA in Wellington. That's for accommodation, meals, transportation, and for when they are actually on activation.
Thank you.
Any other question? No? Councillor Pike?
And just leading on from Gordon's comment about the long-term plan, which is obviously a big consideration for us at the moment, just trying to understand how you feel we're placed in terms of resourcing, particularly in comparison with other parts of the country, and how that might affect our ability to respond adequately.
Firstly, obviously ours is through the service level agreement, where we have 2 staff who are employed for a city of 180,000 people. You'd probably say that that's a little on the light side. And so as part of our negotiations of that, there is a range of different things we're looking at, as outlined in the report there, whether we go for a like for like with what we have now, whether we look to increase the number of emergency management staff that we have available. Obviously, the more we have, the greater the cost, but the greater reach and impact we can have in levels of preparedness across the community. While you're talking LTP, there's 2 major bids that, from a civil defence perspective, which have been included in the LTP bids. One relates to emergency, our hazard research, which is one of the things that's been identified in the last 2 yearly capability assessments, and the other is readiness and capability within the community. So it'll be a major reach into the community to try and understand what their current levels of preparedness are and their ability to mobilise and respond in an event.
Just on that resourcing question, with the Auckland flood review, I see there's a lot of recommendations that we'll be taking on as well. Are we resourced to deal with that, or will that be coming through to LTP?
No, there are 7 key recommendations from Auckland, which in my view are directly attributable or have some relevance to Hamilton, and they can be addressed within our existing, and we've included that into our work plan. But that just means that there is less time for any other thing. So there is an impact of whatever additional roles we add into that yearly work plan.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, Calvin, for the report. Just a quick question around I think it was in the cyclone when Waikato declared the emergency, and it wasn't Hamilton declaring it. Just wanting to understand, there was some confusion on social media by the community, and there didn't seem to be a material impact, but I just wanted, of that confusion, I just wanted your perspective of it, and is it something that we can address later? Because I didn't see, there might have been, but I didn't see our comms respond to sort of clear up the confusion. And it didn't last for long, it was maybe 12 hours, but it was still there.
I think there is a point of confusion for people when if we go back, we had the Waikato district, and then we had the Waikato group who both declared. And so there is some confusion around terminology, and I think that's something we need to be really, really cognizant of, and we can always do more in terms of our public-facing messaging. And I think that's a takeaway for us from that, because we receive some of that confused messaging as well.
Oh, okay, all right. So something will be worked on to. Yeah,
correct.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Toriki.
Will notices be put into Anteno when we expect big storm events to occur? And the reason why I'm saying that is that when I've gone to check Anteno, and I think that the leaf clogging up in certain parts of the city is a good one. And that while you don't want to encourage the public to get out there and start clearing the drains, it's just for them to be mindful that actually these are some of the areas where you can expect to see flooding as a result of leaf blockages in parts of our city. Can that stuff be made available on Anteno?
We are trying to use every media engagement capacity that we can to try and get the message across in there. We will use everything at our disposal to try and get the message as widely understood as possible.
That's my only question.
Thank you. Gordon, you touched on hotspots. Just checking, do we have, you know, when we get the storm warnings, you go online and people say, oh, I've just cleared my drains and they're preparing ahead. So do we have conversations with those residents, or are they just doing that on their own accord?
Yes, Madam Chair, good question. We typically will use our service request system. So we'll keep in contact. So typically the message will go out to the guys and they'll have a look at it. Any comments, and we encourage them to make contact with council. So we provide a contact number who to contact in terms of getting those drains clean. So
it's a special number
yeah,
for them.
Yeah. So it's mainly our contractors that will go out and support them. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair Kish. Calvin, I was just interested. There was some media around some councils that struggled to claim back legitimate or related costs post emergency, and I was have you looked at that issue in terms of what potential challenges we might face in an emergency? It sounded like it was their systems were down and they couldn't log things and it had to all be on pieces of paper, all sorts of
I mean, our experience goes back to COVID, and whilst it's not necessarily a like for like, I think we spent around 1.6 million in COVID and we got all bar 5,000 of what we requested back. I think that, and I don't have enough detail about other councils to speak on their behalf as to what happened. What we found was that if you had really good detailed processes and good record keeping, and you had purchase orders and you had reconciliation and you had everything there, we had no difficulty getting full reimbursements for all of our welfare related matters.
Okay. Would that change if there was massive power outages or other things that kind of got in the way of using your usual system?
No, we actually started COVID using manual forms.
Okay.
And so it's more labour intensive and time consuming, but we were still able to actually have the required bits of approvals and purchase orders and the reconciliation with everything with the receipt at the end.
Thank you. Cool.
Thanks. No other questions. I'm happy to move that report. Someone wants to second? Thank you, Ewan. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Gordon. Would anyone like to debate? Or anything to add? Nope. Oh, yep.
I meant to say thank you to Calvin for the stellar work that he does.
Definitely, and thank you to the 50-odd staff who were deployed to those areas to help in those other cities. we're very lucky to have such skilled people within the organisation. So thank you, Mayor Paula.
Feedback through other mayors in other places from time to time with the various disasters that we've gone through, or they've gone through, and we've assisted. And they're very grateful for the staff and the calibre of staff and how quickly we respond. And I think that makes a really key point, that the next natural disaster or any other kind of disaster impacts all of New Zealand. And I made that point at the infrastructure conference last week, because we can't be complacent. The weather events can hit anywhere, but even if they don't hit Hamilton directly, the impact across New Zealand is enormous. And we've already talked about the impact on infrastructure funding and the ability to put communities back up to standard. But putting them back up to standard is one thing, putting them back up to a resilient standard is quite a different thing. So that is something that we need to keep our weather eye on. Oh, that pun was not intended. Keep a close eye on going forward, so that we create a really resilient city here. Because at the end of the day, being one of the safest, if not the safest big city in New Zealand, we're always going to be relied upon to help our neighbours and so on. But I also want to say thanks to Calvin's team for the work that he's doing in general, to keep everyone safe in Hamilton. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to the vote on that one with a show of hands. All those in favour?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. Item 11, community occupancy. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Kia ora, Madam Chair, Mayor and Councillors. So my name's Karen Kwok and I'm the Recreation and Community Facilities Senior Advisor in the Parks team. So this report today is seeking approval of 3 community leases: Hamilton East Croquet Club, Phoenix House Charitable Trust and St Paul's Collegiate Rowing Club. So happy to take any questions.
I did have one question. I can't find it now, but there was mention that Phoenix were looking to expand, or...
Yeah, so they're looking to extend out the back of their building to add additional bookable space, event space.
And so the leased area for the new lease, would that be
adequate? That would allow for it. I mean, we haven't actually received a facility development proposal yet, but we just made sure the leased area allows for a development.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Any other questions? No, I'm happy to move. Thank you. Any debate? No, we'll go to the vote on that one. All those in favour with a show of hands, please.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Item 12. Good morning. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, elected members. My name is Alistair McCulloch. I'm a landscape architect and parks planner for the Planning and Policy Group within the Community Group. And I'm joined here today by Joanna Van Walraven, who's my team leader. The purpose of the report is to seek approval to begin the review and consolidation of the Gully Reserves Management Plan and the Riverside Reserve Management Plan into one plan. So we're at the very beginning of the Resource Management Plan process, Reserve Management Plan process. In May 2021, the Community Committee approved a draft program of Reserve Management Plan reviews. This included a proposal to merge plans where practical to streamline the process and avoid duplication of information. The Reserves Act that requires councils to ensure all our reserves are covered under a plan. These plans contain objectives and policies for enjoyment, maintenance, protection and preservation of our reserves. Reviewing and updating these plans will ensure alignment with current central, regional, local strategies, plans and policies, so we know our natural areas and riverside reserves, which are special places, will continue to be cared for in a special way. Given the significance of this management plan for the community and to overall council outcomes, we will be undertaking extensive engagement with our partners. Riverside reserves in particular are significant to Mana Whenua, who will have the opportunity for meaningful involvement. Community groups and internal council partners such as the Waters Group and other stakeholders who have interest in these areas also. The next step is to properly scope out this project and to find out more stakeholders also. As part of the engagement, there will be several touch points with elected members outlined in paragraph 21 of the report. As part of the review process, we hope today that the committee approve the commencement of the preparation of a draft Riverside Reserves and Natural Area Reserve Management Plan as per option 1 of the council report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Just, can I have an explanation? I'm on page 94 of the Māori landmarks on Riverside Reserves, why that one can't be reviewed with these two? Because that's what, 2003?
Ali might be helpful. So, Councillor Angela, that's not a council-owned document. It's Mana Whenua. So the short answer is it can be, but we're only seeking approval for review of the documents that we own, I guess. And certainly part of the conversation with Mana Whenua would be about their desire to update that particular plan as well.
Okay, so follow-up question then, Maria, why, I mean, some of these, like, we've got a separate reserve plan for Jubilee Bush, which is 1993, heavens. We've got all these Claudelands Park Reserves Act. Can we not, I know we have to have a plan, but can we not have them in one? Or what's the review process look like to catch up on all of these things?
So in terms of
Two
that,
questions. Whoever, yep.
Yeah. So that's what we're aiming to do with this.
But this is only two.
This is going to make those natural areas into one, to make it into sort of an omnibus. So this was part of the approved in May.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was. Yeah, so that was approved before that we would try and consolidate them into themes. So this is one of those themes.
Right, so in, the, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 odd reserve management plans that we have, you're looking to reduce those down to 2 or 3?
There's 18 and
okay.
In the May 21 council committee hearing, it was approved to consolidate them down to 9.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going through a process of doing that, rolling through as it comes up.
This is the first cab off the rank.
Okay.
Second, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So there's just no opportunity to reduce, because I'm thinking, these things take such a long time and they're not cheap to review. There's no opportunity to reduce further, to be efficient with that work?
It's possible that we could look at the program again, but when they were consolidated, it was almost thematic to a theme. So, and the reason that they're spaced like that is so that they can be planned for using existing budgets and then using existing staff members. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so just remind me again then, what's the time frame for final review of all of them?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
It's not going to, it's going to take a couple of years?
No, it'll take longer than that, because each one takes about a year, realistically. Although we'd like to do them quicker than that, especially for one like this, which is quite complex and has a high level of public interest, it'll probably take about a year at least to do.
Yeah, I guess,
For each one.
okay, I guess, General Manager, given the tight financial times that we are in, it would be, and I know you said we signed it off last year, the program, but things have moved. I wonder if it's an opportunity to really have another look at this, because they are, they're mainly a management document, right? It's about what activities can happen, all of that kind of stuff. Is there opportunity to do that?
Yeah, I'm hearing from Joe, we can look at that
Yeah.
again and come back to you on that.
Yeah, okay. Great, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Chair. I've just got one question. Under how much of the reserve area would be affected by SNAs, if any?
That one?
So Councillor Ewan, as you're fully aware, the SNA area is still being talked about in the plan change, but I don't have the exact number. I would say a large percentage.
Right. I wonder, in light of that, certainly as a result, wherever it ultimately lands, that will have significant ramifications in terms of what you can do and the costs of doing things. Should we not wait till that's well landed before we even start doing any of these reviews?
I would say, Councillor Ewan, that's definitely an option available to you. It will delay the process. There is quite a lot of consultation that would need to be done for the review of the plans that are being proposed today. The SNA rules embedded in the district plan, they articulate how one undertakes maintenance. It doesn't say you have to undertake maintenance. The reserve management plans actually give the community a signal about how we intend to manage the estate, and they're a requirement under the Reserves Act.
Also, the natural areas, the preservation of natural character and biodiversity within the natural areas lines up with the strategic direction of preservation and like ecological enhancement of SNA areas as well. So I don't think that it's too much different.
All right, thank you. Final question was page 96, financial considerations. I guess my question is either to Maria or to the General Manager. Is there enough substance in what you've put forward there to give elected members a clear indication as to the cost of the process, but more importantly, the consequential rolling costs of some of the activities and that may come out of this whole process?
An answer, but I'm going to let Maria go first, and I'll add on to that if needed.
So, like many of our strategies and plans, Councillor Ewan, these documents set the direction for how we would manage the estate. They don't lock us into a specific project-by-project course of action. So they give a suite of options, if you like. These are the things we would do, and at the time of an LTP, that's the time when council can choose what they can afford to do and what they can't afford to do.
Was that going to be your answer?
That was going to be my answer, and through our asset management plans, which obviously feed into the LTP.
Final question, if I may, Madam Chair. In line with the Deputy Mayor's suggestion, if we were to delay this a little while, what are the ramifications? If we were to say, look, let's just hold, what's the ramifications for that?
Can I answer that? Well, we have a program where we are working through bringing these management plans together for efficiency. So basically it would just delay that program for another year. I do feel quite confident with the expertise that we have in-house to be able to do that work. Ali's worked as an ecologist and landscape architect and is very well qualified for those areas. And it is a high-level plan. That's the other thing. It's not a detailed operational plan, so it doesn't go into that kind of detail that you might expect from that. So,
correct, but it does potentially lead to subsequent decisions in its operational implementation that will have budgetary requirements that, as you've articulated, would be part of another funding discussion.
within the context of all the other mechanisms that there are with the district plan and other things that we manage in our day-to-day operations.
And noting that they are already existing in a different format, you know, as multiple plans. So they are existing plans.
Okay.
So it is about just bringing them together. Yeah.
Hokey pokey.
Just a question in regards to nature in the city, I guess, and how it links to this. I imagine the resourcing that is part of that strategy would also feed into the management of the gully management plans and their resourcing. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're appropriate, but you know, as I say, it's a really high level. These are high level plans, and we also haven't. The other thing to make clear is we haven't put pen to paper with this yet. We're just at this kick-off stage, so all of those things would be scoped out through the management plan.
And also with the nature in the city, they'll be prioritising kind of areas that they see important to start off with. So these two plans should align as well as part of this process.
Thank you.
Just checking, if this were to be passed today, does that prevent you from looking at the program as a whole to work out those efficiencies that Deputy Mayor talked about? Can that still be done?
Yes, it can still be done.
Okay. Yep. All right, I'm happy to move, and Anna to second. Thank you. Any debate? We go now. Councillor Anna.
Tautoko what was said about Ali and his skills and ability in this area, so it's really exciting to see this work happening under his guidance. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Were you pressing your button, Emma? Councillor Emma.
Just following up from Anna's comment to thank the staff. I had a moment to enjoy Maunga Tukutuku gully in the weekend, and it just reminded me of the assets the gullies are to our city. We talk often about the zoos and the Hamilton Gardens, but actually, you know, the offerings that our gullies provide to our communities are crucial, and just want to thank the staff and also the volunteers that do the work in our gullies for maintaining those. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, look, despite my questions, I'm supportive of us continuing. I do want to signal my intention as part of the LTP to raise the option of introducing a targeted rate where we actually allocate some appropriate levels of funding for our reserves and gullies and our obligations to meet and manage our SNAs. I think as an organisation, on one hand, we've introduced a whole series of new SNAs, but on the other hand, I'm not totally convinced that we've quite landed on how we're going to fund it. That we're going to build this huge level of expectation in the community, and we're going to do what we typically do in local government is, oh, we don't have any money, but we built all this expectation and we plod along and we don't actually execute the plan appropriately. And so I'm going to push very hard that we have the courage of our convictions. If we feel that gullies and biodiversity and significant natural areas are important, that we allocate the appropriate level of funding. And some of us may have to take a very deep breath when we look at the proper quantums that will be required for their implementation. And I don't think we should be scared by that. And I think we should have the power of our convictions to go out to our community and say, we're doing this, and here's the targeted rate to enable us to do it. Because if we don't, we're playing lip service. And so I'm just sending a real clear message of my intention to raise that as part of our LTP and look forward to most of my colleagues' support.
Thank you. Mayor Paula.
Thank you. Ewan raises some pretty good points, and I guess this is one of the areas of work that sits really well in our efforts to reduce carbon emissions, and so our climate work. My interest in that is to measure the multiple outcomes of something, so that, you know, if you're applying other financial tools, you've got a really strong rationale. We've always been planting out gullies, not as fast as we might like, and now we're speeding that up, and we're really embracing that opportunity. And it's a good opportunity to embrace because of the impact it has on climate change and so on, plus biodiversity, which is also extremely important in our city. But we need to make these things explicit so that you, when you're putting money against something in a budget, you know why you're doing it, what well-being you're achieving. And I think in the past we've done that somewhat, but we definitely need to improve the way that we report against those additional well-beings. And in this case, when the community is looking at us for urgent action around climate, and this is something that we can do really readily and easily, we should be making sure that we measure that impact as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just say what a warm, fuzzy feeling I get when Ewan and Sarah are both nodding at the same time. And I look forward to those LTP discussions where you're both just nodding so... We'll go to the vote on this one with a show of hands, please. All those in favour?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. Let's go to item 13 and GM's report with Helen.
So there's just one item in the GM's report, and that's reporting on the report provided by the Accessible Properties Group. So for those of you who are still new councillors, this is a regular report that comes to council. So these properties were sold by council to Accessible Properties in 2015. Pardon?
Selling it was a bad mistake.
Now.
A decision of a previous council. And with the proviso that a requirement of the sale was that Accessible Properties provide reports to council. So this is what that is, and there are a number of things that they're required to report on. And they're to report for 10 years or until there are no more of the original tenants left in any of their properties, whichever comes first. So, and you'll see in the report from the 344 units that were taken over, there's still 116 that are occupied by the original tenants at the time of sale. And then there's an attachment to the report just outlining some of the, I guess, some of the what they would call highlights or activities currently happening. So you'd see under the tenant survey a high response rate, satisfaction rate, some work on healthy homes, so upgrading all the units to healthy home standard. And then the Accessible Properties also run a number of programs and support services for the tenants. So any questions or?
Councillor Anna.
Yeah, just a quick question around, I understand the conditions of sale and the, what is it? That encumbrances are in place for 10 years, right? I guess, is there a way that we could negotiate or work with Accessible Properties to see if that housing could be retained in perpetuity for affordable housing? No. Thank you, I guess it's going to potentially come to an end or not. We have no control. Is that really where it's at?
Yeah, we did sell the properties.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
other than the encumbrances.
Yeah, I was meaning more from a relational perspective.
Yeah,
to
and I
work
mean,
with
that's
them.
probably true for any organised, we probably have as much means with accessible properties as we do with any other, social or affordable housing provider. And just thinking of the housing forum that Moko was referring to earlier, perhaps those are conversations that we can pick up there. It would be the appropriate place to do that.
Thank you.
Question? Would you like to move this?
Let me think about that. No.
Okay, I will move, and can I ask for a second? Thank you, Anna. And we shall go into debate. I have nothing to say at this moment, and I know that Councillor Wilson is ready to go.
I always look forward to this particular item coming because it gives me an opportunity to remind myself and my colleagues who participated, and there's not any of us left now, who participated in a desperate attempt to try to keep our pensioner housing. And I look back through my political career and re-highlight that this was a horrendous, poorly thought out decision, and I regret it to this day. I quickly add that in fact the government made life very difficult for us because they chose to change the legislation that said if you wanted ongoing broader subsidies, it couldn't be through local government. You had to be a registered charity. So they cornered us into the corner. And here's the perverse outcome. What is our number one problem today? Is housing, affordable housing, and who stripped the ability to implement it at a local government level? Our friends in Wellington. And there's an irony now, they give us a lecture about all the things we should be doing for housing. And so I'm heartbroken by this, and it's just a great opportunity to remind us here of the role we play and the importance of some of the decisions. And my good friend, Councillor Anna, asked the most logical question, like, shouldn't we be saying to these organisations, would you continue to do the work? And at the rates past the 10-year period, and they're all smiling, saying, we went into this with a commercial aspiration that after 10 years, all the shackles would fall off and we can do whatever we want with this property. And so I think we're going to find that, in fact, things are going to deteriorate. And that is a tragic result of this poorly strategised plan those years ago. That was it. Martin Gallagher and Dave McPherson participated in that debate.
I heard them channeling through you. Yeah. Councillor Anna.
Yeah, just to total what Ewan said, really. There's a lot of learnings in this, clearly, and I was part of the protest that marched up the steps with a coffin full of houses to say, please don't sell. So I do remember that very well. I think there's some real learnings in it as we head into tomorrow's discussions around housing, around the emerging areas, and thinking about how we can secure affordable housing for our community going forward. And I'm interested in, even in this report, the definition of affordable housing and even the rents that are paid in this instance don't line up with the definition that we're looking to work with, as I understand, which is 30% of income. And so I'm really interested in how we keep discussing that, because there's a lot of fluffiness around what might be affordable or not. And coming back to that seems incredibly important. So yeah, a lot of lessons in this space, and hopefully we can keep those in mind. Thank you.
Right, I have nothing to add, so we'll go to the vote on that one with a show of hands. All those in favour?
And dissenting? The motion is received unanimously.
Thank you. And I'll move us into public excluded. Can I have a seconder? A second, yes. All those in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. Carried. And we'll give Amy a minute. So we're still aiming for lunch at 12 because we're all going to move our butts to Deputy Mayor's instruction.